part 3 of episode 63. We're on a new segment here, the Superstar Scores. And the way that this works, for those that don't know from not reading the website yet, shame on you, but the typical 0 to 100 scale is broken down into 10 different categories. So obviously that becomes 0 to 10. And those are broken into 5 umbrella sections of how to rate whatever superstar we pick for that edition. There's going to be a different one each time. If we get to a year from now or something like that, where we've done tons of people that are interesting and we want to kind of redo everybody because they've done more in their career, we might do that. But for the most part, I think it's just going to be a standard one-shot deal. The 5 categories that are each comprised of 2 different categories inside of it are in-the-ring skills, on the mic skills, appearance, backstage, and crowd reaction. And the ones in them are, I'll go through them. But essentially, each one of the 2 parts in those 5 parts is going to be 0 to 10. 10 is the best, 0 is the worst, 5 is the dead center, middle ground. They're not good, they're not bad. You know how that works. It's the green light, the yellow light, and the red light. Every one of my websites uses that kind of a setup, so you should know that by now. It's basically the 3-count critique from pay-per-views. So I'm going to give my ratings for Shawn Michaels, and then afterward, Mike and Braden will go through, and I'll be talking about each section when I'm doing it too. Or you know what, it might be even better to just kind of go the first one, I give them a 10, that kind of a thing. We'll see. The ring skills first and foremost. The 2 categories are athleticism and psychology. Now, athleticism is their signature move set, their finisher. Can they perform a wide variety of moves on a regular basis? Do they botch moves a whole lot? Essentially, it's the difference between somebody like a Shawn Michaels and somebody like a Great Khali, who cannot walk to the ring right, cannot run, cannot do anything really other than push people and chop them, and that's like about it. And then Shawn Michaels pulls things out of his ass, and I gave HBK a 10 out of the 10 scale because his finisher, Sweet Chin Music, is awesome. It comes out of nowhere, but you can also build up to it. It looks like it could hurt. It stood the test of time. The Iron Man match proves that he has the stamina and he can break up the repetition in the middle of matches and do something out of nowhere. He's just, I mean, this is going to be one of those times where he is a perfect example of athleticism and one of these benchmark. When we get to benchmark people, I'm probably going to point them out. Like, for instance, if we end up doing Undertaker next, Undertaker is a perfect 10 for entrance. That's a guarantee. So I would say athleticism 10 for Shawn Michaels. What do you guys think?
Yeah, same. Athleticism's a 10 because the guy, he was he was extremely gifted in the ring. You can't take that away from him. Everything that you've just actually stated there, Shawn Michaels, in a heartbeat, he could go toe to toe with the likes of Shelton Benjamin. Do you remember that huge super kick he did when
Oh,
they did that Gold
Gold
Rush tournament?
Rush.
Yeah, that was amazing. He was, he always makes everybody look gold, but he can do so much in the ring as well. Even with his match against Hogan, where he was flying around like a fucking cruiserweight to make Hogan look good. So yeah, I agree with you totally. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, there are very few that can put on a show like Shawn Michaels. He's stood the test of time because of in-ring performance. Basically, like, you know, for his time, some of the moves that he was doing off the ropes were that was like kind of like, ooh, wow, that's
moonsault.
high risk for the time. I know, like, it's Diamond does it now, but when he was doing it, like, that athleticism had never ever been seen before. And if you can wow people, and even like as wrestling got a little bit more agile and a little more athletic, he was still able to keep that wow factor in the matches where, he would steal the show against, like Kurt Angle WrestleMania 21, having an entertaining brawl with Vince the year later, like two completely different matches. And who could forget, being involved in the great triple threat against Triple H and Benoit at WrestleMania 20. And the guy he is just a workhorse. He can, I bet he could, carry a sack of shit and have, a good match in terms of athleticism. So yeah, absolutely, he gets a 10.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have the other part of the ring skills is psychology. That's your ability to tell a story in the ring, make you kind of forget that it's fake. Selling your injuries. Are they the type of person that if they get hit in the head in a match, for the rest of the match, they're kind of loopy? Or are they somebody like kind of a John Cena who you can run him over with a car and then he
And he
kind
still
of,
gets back up.
yeah, he kind of limps a little bit for a minute, but then a minute later he runs around the entire ring and just goes, ah, like, you
John
know,
Cena.
yeah,
Yeah, like John Cena, who gets like beaten the living shit out of, but somehow comes back.
right,
With
yeah.
one move.
Yeah, with
Uh,
one move.
so it's kind of a deal like that, and um, whether or not the match itself has a purpose to it. Are these two people feuding with each other, or are they just wrestling each other because it's a random tag match, like that kind of a thing? I gave Shawn a 10 on this one too because the way that I described it on the website, all you got to do is look at his WrestleMania matches with Undertaker and Ric Flair. Enough said.
Yeah, but also you got to look at his back catalogue as well. The guy can always tell a story, whether it was with the Bulldog and that whole crappy story over, Brett's sister, or even Shawn was gold in that. Or you can look at his heel and face runs where every little story he carved the whole nuances of those stories, told them within the ring. Whether you look at the Iron Man match where both him and Brett were so desperate to get that one pin, and they put on a fucking clinic. And I remember being one of the fans who was just out of his seat the whole time watching that. And it's something that you can't teach to a lot of wrestlers these days. A lot of guys want to fly around the ring or, hit the five moves of doom and not actually understand what, being, um, what the story is they're trying to tell in the ring. They try and let it out as all their promos and everything like that instead of actually looking at the whole psychology. So yeah, definitely 10 out of 10. He's a dying breed. I'm glad that they're using him at the moment as a support role to help students in the NXT roster.
Yes, psychology for Shawn Michaels. Everything he did in the ring, you kind of felt, whether it be the selling of or actually him actually feeling his back pain, like the match against Austin, WrestleMania. Was that? I want to say 14.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah, that most of that was real, but when he came back, it was a lot of the same stuff. Like they would go
Oh,
like
like the
surgically.
sledgehammer to the back, yeah, with
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
sledgehammer. That I felt that after that match. I was like, freaking.
So like
I
even
thought he
after
was
he
never
came
going to
back,
walk again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They played, the whole, the surgically, or I don't know if he was even surgically repaired, but they would always mention the broken back, and he would sell it supremely. Like, well, did he really re-injure his back, or any of the leg injuries? You could feel when he was selling pain. It's kind of like you felt his pain while watching
Or
him in the ring.
the Geritron to the face. That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
another
just
one.
everything he did, you felt it. And that is a suspension of disbelief. And if a performer can do that, like the match with Ric Flair WrestleMania 24, oh my God.
Hmm.
Just you've kind of felt everything that he was going through, and it's that suspension of disbelief that separates Michaels from like three-quarters of the roster
Yeah.
and made him like that's why he didn't get stale like throughout his entire career. Like you hear people bitch about, John Cena because I like how we're bringing him up 1,000 times in this
Yeah.
comparison, or even fucking Triple H. You know they can be damn repetitive. Whereas with Shawn, he would change it up, but he, his emotion and the way he conveyed every performance he put his heart and soul into, it raised your suspension of disbelief and it really made you connect with him. And for that, he gets a 10,
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely.
100%.
And that brings us to the mic skills, which are charisma and character. I'm going to kind of zoom by here because I think we're already at like 6, 7 minutes or something like that, and this is going to take me forever to edit. Charisma, mic skills, that kind of a thing about promos. I gave him an 8. Uh, Not one of the uh, craziest of all time kind of stuff, like Piper, Rock, Jericho, Punk, but always held his own. And the same with character. It's about whether or not their gimmick is interesting and can they pull off being a heel and a face. I gave him an 8 on that one too because he dwindled a bit after he stopped being edgy, but he was always interesting in all of his gimmicks and all that kind of stuff. I apologize again for kind of rushing through this. I'm going to try to figure out a cleaner way to do that. But what do you guys think as far as charisma and character, his mic skills?
Yeah, I would say definitely between a 7 and an 8. He could sell a match in a feud, but he wasn't the biggest, larger than life, charismatic guy ever. I think any one of Sean's fans could tell you that. But what he was able to do was he could sell a match and he can sell and convey emotion. And that's a big thing for most superstars. He wasn't dull by any stretch of the imagination. He got the job done and he did it well. And as far as his character goes, I think it needs to be looked at in two different ways. Like you could give a 10 to when he first turned heel and became the Heartbreak Kid. That character at that time was just he made you want to probably kick him in the balls. Pretty much. Like, singing your own theme music, being that into yourself. And I think Sensational Sherry was his manager at the time, um doing the backing vocals, just everything about that after he turned on Marty Jannetty was just perfect. It was an awesome character, but as you said, when he came back and still used the same theme, and that it was just like good guy, normal, down to earth Shawn Michaels, which means it's not the same character. So for that, again, that's like a between a 7 and an 8 in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the character transcended the gimmick, but if you're talking about actually being his gimmick, then yeah, I think you're right on the money with the 8 there because he didn't sell his gimmick once he turned a face. Once he came back as well, he never sold being HBK anymore. He sold being Shawn
Yeah, he
Michaels.
was just good guy Shawn, pretty
Yeah,
much.
Mm-hmm.
but he
And
still retained the same nuances that made him there in the first place.
and we're on appearance, which is made up of physique, which I gave him an 8 because he's muscular to the point where he needed to be, but he's more agile and everything like that. He was attractive, which worked with his gimmick, and but he's not the tallest, he's not the most muscular, all that kind of stuff. And his entrance, all of his DX and his solo stuff, the pyro, the music, the taunts, the videos that they put were always great. So I give it a 9. 8 and a 9 for that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, I'd
say.
go. Yeah, go on, Brad.
Go ahead, Mike.
Uh,
I'll go after you.
well, in regards to the physique, yeah, totally on the money there. He was a bit bulked up when he was going through with DX when he was a heel before, but we all know the reason why he was like that. When he recently came back, he was mostly, cardio. He looked great. Wasn't like the most chiseled physique, but he didn't have to be because what he did in the ring spoke volumes. So yeah, I'd go totally with an 8 on that. Entrance was a 9 because every time his music hits, you always knew what he was doing. Always have his pyros. Always did certain moves in the jives that got the crowd like freaking going nuts over him. So yeah, total of 9 on that one.
In terms of for his appearance, for his physique, it's between an 8 and a 9. I mean, the man has always looked athletic his entire wrestling career. There's not one match where, he looked like shit.
Well,
He never
Yes.
became fat.
there was one where he had a bit of a belly, but it wasn't that bad. That
Yeah,
was his
yeah, but
return match for Triple H, if you remember.
well, yeah, but he'd been out of the ring for 4 years, and
Yeah, yeah. Didn't miss a
it,
step. He did not miss a step at
and
all.
to be able to perform like that after being gone for 4 or 5 years is brilliant. Like nobody would have ever thought it's. And I don't even know how much training he had for that, or if he just came back and did. I'm pretty sure he just came back and had the match.
Yeah,
So then he worked his way into even better ring shape in like a snap of a finger. Like the man's always been like when it in terms of working full time, he's always looked, very, very athletic and just very, very fit. And it's helped him a good majority of his career. And I'm sure, nobody would argue, the physique of Shawn Michaels, even though he wasn't muscle bound, he wasn't huge. He looked athletic, and for his character and what he performs in the ring, that's all he needed to be. Entrance, I've always loved his entrance. Maybe it's just because I'm a mark for him, but whether it's DX or the whole, getting down on the knees, praying, and having the pyro go off, especially at like a WrestleMania, I've always loved his entrance. I'm going to give it a little higher. I'm gonna actually give it a 10. I've always just loved Shawn's entrance, whether it's solo or with DX, it's just brilliant.
Hmm. Now we're on the final four parts that we're going to talk about, which are backstage and crowd reaction. Under backstage, here's the first dip. He gets a 5 for professionalism. And that's because this is about whether or not you're a locker room leader. Do you have politics? Do you screw people over and all that? We all know about the clique and all the controversies that have happened with that. So you can't give him, a 10 on that because Shawn was a dick back in the day.
yeah,
So,
he was a nightmare. He even admits he was a nightmare.
right. So 5 for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Actually, I would rate him lower actually as a
Yeah,
four.
me, yeah, I'd rate him between a 3 and a 4 as well.
He was a head case and a bit of a prima donna. He nearly even he was at one point refusing to job to Austin on WrestleMania 14 unless Vince told him, that he was doing that what he did for the company mattered.
Well, I almost gave him a 4, and I boosted him up to a 5 because of what he did after he returned. I figured
No,
that
no, I
that earned
agree.
him an extra point.
No, I agree. He had some. You can have some solace in the fact that the guy came in and said I was a dick, and changed his ways, and he elevated everybody. The guy didn't even give a crap about the world championship. He was just like, "Don't put the belt on me. It doesn't matter. There's other people that need it." He elevated John Cena. He elevated Shelton Benjamin.
Well, he
He
tried to
elevated.
elevate Chris Masters at his highest
Yeah,
peak in 2005.
yeah, but we know how that went because
Well,
Masters was
yeah, well,
shite.
but still, I'm just showing like how
Mm,
much, he cared to help build a roster. That was the
Yeah, of
only thing on his
course.
mind after he came back.
Yeah,
We
and
need to build people.
and then we have marketability. Do they do charities, talk shows? Do they get arrested a whole lot? That kind of stuff. I gave him a 7 because he did do stuff like that, but he's no John Cena. John Cena would be a perfect 10 benchmark for this.
hey, he
Y-
did Playgirl for God's sake.
Right? Yeah.
Let's see Cena do Playgirl, okay? And he gets mocked a lot for
Back,
that.
well,
Every
back
single
then
little
he was
pun.
actually proud of it. I'm pretty sure.
It was until he realised what type of magazine it was.
Was it at Raw 1000 when Triple H said, don't make him lose a smile. He might go crazy and do Playgirl again or something like that.
Yeah, and he goes, "It was just that one time I needed the money."
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was brilliant, actually. But yeah, 7. I'm sure he did his fair share of media, but he's not Hogan, Cena, Austin level. All
And,
eyes are
and the
on you,
same, I
so to
will
speak.
say, you have to look at the way the company was at the time
Yeah.
in comparison to what it is now.
There was
And
less
it's all,
avenues to do that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So.
because Vince just got done for the whole steroid scandal, and people would just didn't want to touch the WWE with a barge pole.
Mhm.
So um, if he had the opportunity to do it, because that would be part of being the world champion, he would probably be doing it. But because there wasn't that many avenues to go through, he wasn't doing as much. And if you look at someone like John Cena, he's in the public eye a lot, and it's a lot of it is due to the fact that he's marketed that way.
Right. And we're down to the final two. Gonna try to rush these to make this maybe about like a 17-minute, 18-minute video. Um, for crowd reaction, the popularity and the credibility. Popularity is obviously the boos, the cheers, the Twitter followers, the merchandise, ratings. Uh, I gave him a 9 on that. I gave him a 9 also on credibility, where at any time he could have came in and beaten anybody and nobody would have questioned it. Now, he wasn't a perfect 10 where he was winning every single match, but he could have won any match and nobody would have called bullshit on it. So 9 and a 9 for me.
I think just for me being a mark. His popularity's a 10. Only like Montrealians, I believe, ever booed him because they're so butthurt over the whole Bret Hart screw job thing. That's the only place I remember him getting heat after he came back,
Well, I loved
pretty
the fact the
much.
way he told him to go get over it.
Well, yeah, when he was a heel, when he was working
Yeah,
the feud with Hogan, that was that was awesome.
he's like, just get over it. Stop being
Yeah.
butthurt, and it was just it was funny. He knows how to work a crowd.
Oh
Whether
yeah.
you love him or hate him, people always used to go nuts every time his like entrance music came on.
Yeah, so I give him a 10 in terms of credibility.
Yeah.
As you were saying, sure, even though he didn't win all the time and that might knock him down a peg, and it's the fact that you knew he could win at any time that I think he deserves a 10, even though he did lose a lot and he did put over a lot of people. But I think it's the fact that you always believe Shawn could win that makes him just that much better. So that when the
Well,
people actually did beat him, it was looked at as a big deal because,
yeah.
people thought, well, he could have beat that person anytime. That person's really good. They were able to actually beat Shawn Michaels.
Well, think of it this way, right? The guy beat Edge and Randy Orton when they were at the pinnacle of a tag team when they were rated RKO. Went on to challenge Cena for a good half of a year for the WWE Championship, and no one complained.
Hmm.
No,
That shows how good he is.
So I ended
exactly.
up with a full score of 83, and for the most part, you guys have agreed with me. So I mean, there'd probably be 84, 85,
Yeah,
82, that kind of a thing.
between 83 and 86 for sure.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
So he's definitely in the green, in the good side of things, which that's no surprise. And for forewarning, pretty much nobody is going to get to the point where they're at 90 and above. It's going to be really hard to do that. Just because you lose 1 point from each thing and you lose one extra point, you're already at 89. So if everybody gets all, why is, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker and Hulk Hogan and all that, it's still in the 80s and all that. That's just a matter of 10 categories and all that. If you broke it down in the more, it'd probably be different. And we're going to try to retool this a whole lot and everything because I don't think it's necessarily one of those things that works too well as far as smack talk, but I really like the idea of the articles, so it might be something where we don't do the full thing for smack talk. We might do half and kind of just refer to the website
Yeah,
or
it's just
something.
a little test, if you
Yeah,
will.
like the top rip list and all that kind of stuff. This is the first time we're doing it, so we're gonna figure out the best possible way, and then that should be it then for superstar scores. And next week, I'm going to give you a little heads up here. Tuesday is when I'm going to record the Royal Rumble match predictions. That's going to be the specialty post for the week. It's not going to come on the Friday recording that'll be up on Saturday, but that will include Royal Rumble predictions, Ask Him, the hot tags, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to seem a little bit weird, but that's going to be the layout. And we're going to get your opinions on different stuff when that happens. Next part, we're going to talk about the TNA Genesis review, and then that'll be it for episode 63. So stay tuned for part 4.